class at the Caribbean Graduate School of Theology, and I have before me six wonderful looking students. I'm meeting them all for the very first time, but they all look very bright, and I'm very encouraged. At least at the beginning of the course, they're smiling. And we have here six of the seven students that are in the course. We have Everton Bailey, we have Carvelo Duffus, we have Audrey Harvey, we have Iselin Brown Clark, we have Keon Jackson, and we have Denise Singh. And our only missing person is the one and only Michelle Spence. I'm looking forward to meeting her, and hopefully she will be with us in the next class. This is the church leadership and administration course. It's a module that runs normally for 3 to 4 weeks. In this module, we have adjusted it so that it will, in fact, run for 3 weeks, and we will have face-to-face times, and we will also have some online sessions, and outside of that, we will be in touch with each other by email, by telephone, and so on. I expect it to be a very exciting class. We have done this course several times. I have over the last 10 years here at CGST, and each time it gets better and better. So this one, I suspect, will be the best of them all. In my own approach to teaching, which we'll talk a little about tonight, I usually tell my students that they all begin with A's, because I expect all my students to get A's. I don't expect that at the high school level or in prep school, because those students are sent to school and some of them don't want to go to school. But I suspect that at this age and stage, some of you have children that are almost as old as me, and I know that as adults, your mother and your father didn't send you to school. You have come motivated by your own interest, and therefore I expect that you will, in fact, apply yourselves, and you will do well. You may doubt it because you're not sure what we have to cover. But I know what we have to cover. I'm not sure whether you can cover it. But I'm here to help you. And it is my determination to work with you to have each of you have a very, very good opportunity to keep the A that you have started with. So in other words, if you don't end with an A, it's because somehow you fell off. But I'm going to work with you. That's my role, to work with you to keep it. The course is, in fact, going to be crunched somewhat because we have lost about 4 sessions, but we're not going to lose any of the content. I am going to reorganize the schedule, and so we're starting today with a schedule that is allowing us to cover a lot of ground tonight, and we're going to have to move very briskly and very quickly. We will come back tomorrow and we will cover even more material, and then also on the third evening on Friday. But I'd like to challenge us to get together on Saturday, because we want to make up for the time that we have lost, and it really is in your favor. and we can learn a lot more on a Saturday because we're coming in the morning rather than in the evening after you have already spent yourself out in the work world. So the challenges for us, I'm putting out to you, to meet on Saturday for 4 hours from 9 until 1, from 9 a.m. until 1 p.m. And during that time, because it's going to be a long session, it won't be weighted so much with content. We will have some practical exercises during that. And I will also be introducing you to the assignments and to ensure that you have a good start in how to tackle your assignments. So then the next 3 sessions are going to be different types of sessions. These sessions this week are going to be filled with content. And for your own benefit, I have produced all the content in this. And you can actually take the material and create your own book as long as you put my name on it. But all of this we're going to do this week. We're going to go through it. And but next week we're going to have tutorials. If we can complete all the content this week, then you will be able to respond to all that we have learned. And we have what we call the CCN, the course content notes. These are the course content notes, but it is accompanied in the appendix by a set of review questions. And each chapter in this, or each subject area, has a set of notes. And so after we cover it, you go home, spend an hour, and try to respond to the content notes. It would be good for you to do it when you go home, so it's fresh in your mind. But in the tutorials, you will have the opportunity left the plane of saying all and okay, that's it. I'd like you then to get your syllabus out and let us run through that very quickly. Now, I want you to spend some time reading through your syllabus. It's very important to read your syllabus and try to understand what it is you are committing yourself to and what the requirements are for the course. And there's a course description here that is laid out that gives you an idea of what we are about. First of all, I want you to know that the course is dealing with two dimensions of leadership. One, it's called leadership that has to do mainly with relational leadership. And then it also deals with administration, which, generally speaking, when we say administration, we're talking about management. Okay? So it's church leadership and church administration. We are looking at two ways in which we direct and manage what we have set about to do. One is by way of leading and leadership, and we will discuss what that means. And then also administration, which is another aspect of leadership. We call this a blended course because it is not just lectures, it is a mixed course. It's online, and you are required to do a lot of stuff online, but also it is face-to-face, and I lean towards face-to-face because I believe, especially in the courses that we teach like this, that impartation is very important. And as I indicated to you earlier, it's very important to experience what you are learning. So I could just give you this book and say, go and read it and see if you understand it and write. But to interact is very important. And I believe that that will help you as we press through. There are goals and objectives which are important in this course. One of the most important things that I can tell you from the outset is that I'm going to share with you my philosophy and approach to leadership. And I'm biased because I've been doing it a long time. But I'm also doing it not just for you to learn what I do, but I want you, in observing and receiving my knowledge and my experience and the way in which I interact with you, I want you to learn from that and for yourselves to develop your own philosophy of leadership. It may not be new, but it needs to be yours. And in the end, that's what I'm looking for. I like to produce what I call original thinkers. You need to be an original thinker. And again, it does mean that what you're thinking, nobody has ever thought it before. But when you think it, you must own it. And we must say, you know, that's Keon. That's the way she thinks. It's different to Cavallo, you know. And each of you will develop your own leadership philosophy and also leadership style. But you will learn from others that we will talk about, and hopefully you will learn some things also from me. Then also leadership is not just a philosophy, but leadership must always be understood within context. So we can talk about principles of leadership, but you need to embrace those principles, and they become yours when you begin to apply them. You can apply them to your business. You can apply them to your home situation. You can apply them to your work situation in the corporate world. You can apply them in the academic world. You can apply them in the community. You can apply them within the church. But leadership, you're not just a leader. How we know you're a leader is because you are applying your gifts and your abilities within a context and within a setting that allows you to make an impact. And you're not a leader unless you have an impact. And the other goal that we have here is to ensure that you are able to appreciate the different aspects of leadership. We talk about leadership, we talk about administration, and leadership is your ability to manage. It's to manage yourself and to manage your environment. And in order to do that, you have to know how to use the word lead and how to administrate.
Isn't leadership different from management?
That's one of the questions I'm going to ask you. Yeah, good question. And we're going to explore that. What do you think? From your experience and from what you have learned. Tell me what's the difference.
I think being a leader, you tend to know how to get people to do things.
Right.
And then management now is really managing the resources that is needed to do the things.
Yeah. And how do you define management as separate from administration? Speak loudly so that we pick up.
In managing, you're managing to get the task done. As it relates to administration, you're going more into the planning stage, planning to, from beginning to the end, to include the resources, to include the resources as it relates to financial, human, otherwise. But in the respect of manager and leader, the leader enables you or drives you to get the task done, but the manager manages the task to be done. So, you're supposed to complete the task within 30 seconds. It's 30 seconds. The manager is for the 30 seconds, while the leader could probably, you have a headache, certain stuff. So you kind of, you're lenient when you come on to certain things like that.
Yeah. Anybody else? What do you think?
Well, I would agree with Everton as it relates to the difference between a leader and a manager. Because leaders basically, when you're in a leadership position, you basically communicate the task to be done. You set guidelines, there are outlines as to how it should be done, and you're expecting that it ought to be done. And this is where the manager comes in, or he or she comes in, where this task, as Cleon says, will now be carried through, will not be carried on.
Hmm? Yeah, Audrey doesn't agree with you. What do you think, Audrey?
Well, while I agree with what Everton said, the manager can also be a leader, I think, in terms of how the person motivates people to get the task done. So being a leader, you should be able to drive people to them. What you are set out to do. For example, if the manager manages a department, then the manager also leads the people he or she is in charge of.
Yeah.
Can I jump in? I hear what you're saying, but I kind of look at it the other way, where I think the leader can be the manager, can be a manager. But the manager, I'm not sure the manager can be a leader. The manager manages, sticks to the routine. But the leader has that flexibility to both motivate and encourage, but also to ensure that you are. So you're able to adapt to your environment as a leader, while the manager kind of is just a stickler to what needs, the driver, that kind of thing.
I totally agree with Cleon, because there is a marked difference between leadership and management. Sorry.
No, I was saying, I think leaders can be managers, but I can't manage as a leader.
Right.
So, as I'm saying, because they're a manager, that doesn't necessarily mean that they can't be a leader.
Yeah. Wow.
There's a marked difference between leadership and management.
Yeah, I see.
Okay. The one and the same person, or sometimes.
Yeah, but if we're going to look at the differences, there's a marked difference.
Some managers are good leaders, but not all managers are leaders.
And so it is then that when you're in a leadership position, you are able to manage, but when you are in a management position, you may not be able to lead. But as a leader, you ought to be able to manage at all times.
As well as leaders.
As well as leading. So that's the marked difference. That's the difference I'm talking about.
Wow. So we have leaders and we have managers, and then we have managers who lead.
Yeah.
Or leaders who manage. I see. Well, I'm so glad you're in this course. A lot depends, as you're going to discover, on your philosophy. And so what you're really sharing is your philosophy of leadership, whether leadership includes management. I noticed some of you say a good leader can manage. So then he's not really a leader if he's a poor leader. I mean, you've said it. You've qualified leadership and said a good leader must be able to manage. So then perhaps we shouldn't call him a leader unless he can manage. You know, these are questions that we have to ask ourselves. And in a program like this, what we're really going after is not just some philosophical notion about leadership, but what will you turn out to be? You know, and if you're weak in management, well, perhaps we need to strengthen it. And is management the same then as administration? You see? Or is management a term that is different altogether? Perhaps we should be talking about leadership and administration, and then talk about whether as a leader or an administrator you can manage. You know, it really boils down to definition of terms, and that is a very important thing that we will be able to do. And okay, so in this course then we will be talking about leadership development, which has to do with you being able to manage yourself. A good leader is not just somebody who can tell people what to do, but who is able to do it himself or herself. The first thing a good leader should be able to do is to tell themselves what to do, himself or herself, what to do, and to be able to do it. And so, the first part of our program here, of course, we will be talking about development and how we become a good leader. In my approach, it will be the same as how you become a good manager of your skills and abilities so that you're able to lead. So leadership development is very important in this program and in this course. And then we're going to spend some time looking at leadership administration. That is, how do you take the gifts, talents, abilities with a vision, goals, and all the plans that you make as a leader, with the people that you have in front of you, how do you administer it? Or do you administer it? Or do you get an administrator to do it? And in this course we will look at the difference between the role of the leader and the role of the administrator. Okay? A leader deals with people, an administrator deals with systems and things. And I'm using manager as a dimension of leadership and a dimension of administration. Just keep that in focus. You may not agree with me and you may come out with a different approach. No, a manager is a dimension, or management is a dimension of leadership and also a dimension of administration. You have to be able to manage your leadership ability and to develop your leadership skills and to manage yourself. And you also have to be able to manage systems and structures, resources, time, and that has to do with administration. That is the practical side of management. And then systems and structures, facts and figures, and so on. We're going to have a lot of material to cover, and we will look at all of that. Now, I have here some what I call preferred readings, and it's just that, preferred readings. It's not the end of your reading list, you can find your own reading list. But this is just my way of assisting you, and with material that ought to be available in your library, in popular bookstores around here, and also some of them online. Okay? So this reading list, we won't be dealing with that this whole week, but I will introduce you to what we call developmental reading log. Many students find that that exercise is really where they learn most. And so I have developed this, or I utilize this method as an assignment because I think it's good for adults to do their own reading and to log it. And I will give you an outline as to how to do that. It will become a skill that you will benefit from as a leader. Okay? The course requirements and the learning approach, perhaps I should spend a good time on that. Ever heard the word andragogy? All of you? Okay. Tell us, who can explain what andragogy deals with?
It's opposite to the head.
Pedagogy.
Pedagogy is basically a teacher standing and imparting information. Andragogy normally students leading and being involved in the learning process, probably even influencing how the learning process is done and the type of material that is used.
Oh, you should write that down. I could quote you. Yeah, very good. It's very interesting that pedagogy really comes from a word that means teaching children, you know. And the truth is that even when we are teaching adults, we tend to teach with a style as if we're teaching children. We instruct them, we lecture them, we give them all this material, and so on. But andragogy comes from a word that actually means adults, and it gives us an approach to teaching and learning. And so I use the andragogical approach with you because you're adults, and it makes it easier for me if I put the responsibility on you to learn. The difficult time for me is to prepare for you. So that's why I will spend time and literally write a book, you know. But then I only do it because I want to provide a guide for you. But you're going to have to expand beyond what I can give to you based on your interests and based on your experiences. When you shared what you do out in that world, I'm humbled because I realize that I stand to learn more than all of you put together. Because I'm in here and I'm very much interested in what, you know, Audrey does. When she goes out there in the corporate world, the insurance world, I'm interested in what Iselin does when she's there in the academic world, you know, teaching there and doing research and so on. I'm interested in what Everton does. I'm interested in trucking. I'm trying to figure, you know, is it she who married a trucker, or is it trucker who is a guy who married her and became a trucker? You know, I mean, but your experience. Now you are really dealing with leadership and management and administration from out of a grid that already exists in you. And we learn based on the grid that's inside of us. Okay? And part of why I need to look at you is because when I look at you, I'm trying to get to the grid. You know, I look when you smile, I look when you chuckle, I look when you frown, I look when you ask questions, because all of that is helping me to engage with who you are on the inside. Okay, and that's why I like face to face. And then in rather than consider me as a lecturer, you consider me as a facilitator because I'm here to facilitate your learning. And each of you is going to learn differently. Okay? So that's my task. My task is to study you and to be sure to help you in your learning process, help Audrey, help Everton, help, each of you in your learning process. And that is why the assignments that I give provide for you the opportunity not just to tell me what I taught you, but rather to tell me what you think about it and what you have learned from it. You will direct yourselves to explore, facilitate a directed supervision. I'm facilitating by supervising you both online and face to face. Direct early application of knowledge. Just look at it. themes, topics. Yeah, in my notes, but did you print off yours, Everton? You have it printed out? Yes, if you click, I think you have it, Audrey. Right. You can just share it with Ison. You have it, yeah? Yeah. I really just want you to become familiar with these terms, okay? We're not going to be, they will come up during your course. Leadership context is very important. You have it? Yeah, 1B. The leadership context is very important. We've talked about that. And then the contextual leader. That is the leader who leads appropriately within the context. He's not just in there leading in a church. He's leading as a church leader. That's different, you know. Otherwise, you treat the people in church as if you're driving a truck, you know, and that doesn't work. Okay, so there's contextual leadership. Then there's leadership style. We'll talk about theory and we'll talk about practice. Always theory and practice. Then we'll talk about transformational leadership. Very, very important as a concept. And we're going to look at what we mean by transformational leadership. It has become a very popular term now. And most of us like to think we're transformational leaders, but we're going to examine ourselves to see the extent to which we are. Not all of us are transformational leaders. What is another term that is used along with transformational leadership, which is a kind of counter transactional leadership? Okay? And I was going to tell you earlier, but I'll just say it to you now, that transactional leadership is more in line with administrative leadership, you see, and transformational leadership is more in line with personal, influential leadership. Other philosophers in leadership talk about transactional leadership as leadership management. But as you know, I've already given you a different approach. Then there is leadership from within. You can lead from within, or you can lead from without. You know, that is very, very important, especially as a Christian, especially working in the church, and especially with our hero, you know, J, short for Jesus. He emphasized leadership from within, you know. Leadership signature. Everybody has a leadership signature. Your leadership signature basically is talking about who you really are as a leader. That's why I say you have to be an original leader. All of us are originals. Okay, so you don't lead like somebody else. You may begin that way, but you must end up as a mature leader. You have your own signature. Ideographic leadership has to do with how you interact at different levels of leadership, you know, how you react and interface with authorities, with your peers, with subordinates. Leadership have to lead with this consciousness that you're not always the one in leadership, but that doesn't mean that you're not a leader. You know, Jesus emphasized that. The best leaders are those who have learned to follow. And every leader must be accountable. You know, so those are some things. Then there's motivational leadership, and setting and achieving goals, self-assessment exercises in leadership. These are just terms that you will pick up in the course, and when you finish this course, you should be able to talk about leadership in using any of these terms. Then example leaders that we can study. There are different kinds of leaders. As we use the word leadership signature, not all of us lead the same way. Okay? And we lead The times in which we live and the context in which we live determine the type of leader that is demanded. Could you say that again? Who can say that? It went away. Huh? Yeah. The time in which you live and the context within which you function determine the type of leadership that is demanded. That's very, very important. All right? So I want you to appreciate, therefore, that in the scriptures there are many, 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 many leaders and many different types of leaders. Okay? The leader as a skilled delegator of essential tasks. A good leader is a good delegator. Moses had to learn that. He didn't know. Who did he learn it from? From Jethro. You know? The leader, a creature of time and circumstance. That's what I was just saying. You know, judges emerged because of the times in which they lived. The leader as a developer, a nurturer, and a sharer of a vision. A good person is Nehemiah. Nehemiah didn't accomplish until he was able to share his vision. Okay? The leader and relational mentorship, the supreme person is Jesus. We will talk about that later in the course. The leader is an agent for structural change. All right? You either use a Peter model or other apostles. Paul was a different kind of a leader to Peter. Peter couldn't make it. Peter couldn't build the church. But his faith started it. But Paul structured the church. The leader as a consensus builder, James. The James model. Remember James? Huh?
I have a question.
Yes.
Paul was able to structure the church.
Paul was able. Yes. He started the church. He was a talker. The first big sermon landed him 3,000 people. With the help of the Holy Spirit.
What you say that there must have been some form of structure before the Apostle Paul came on?
Very good question. Wow, should I answer you now or let you wait? In other words, Jesus was there, the supreme leader, but Jesus did not structure the church. And yet he said, I will build my church. But he got Paul to do it. What happened in those 3 years with Jesus? We might as well talk about that. What happened in those 3 years? Who can say?
That the 3 years he was walking there.
The 3 years that he was in ministry.
Basically, he was recruiting in a sense.
Recruiting in a sense. You don't want to say recruiting, so it just says in a sense. Yeah? Go ahead.
He was recruiting the people that he would use to build this church.
Yes?
And recruiting and training.
Training them. Yeah? In what way? Paul trained them too.
Paul trained them.
To be like him.
To be like him. Yeah? Paul also says, follow me as I follow Christ.
Right, so it's about Christ.
Yeah. I want you to just exercise your mind. We're going to be doing that all tomorrow and the next day. But because it comes up, then we might as well explore it. That's how we learn. Yeah. What's the difference in the time of Jesus and the time of Paul? See, a lot of people blame Paul, for the church. And they prefer to follow Jesus. They don't like what Paul said, and some things Paul said, and some things Paul did. Yeah. But this is a very good exercise just to ask ourselves that. What is the difference between the first 3 years of Jesus and the next 30 years with Paul? Good question. We don't have the answer yet, but it will come. All right. The leader and leadership succession, very important. Who was a great model of that? Huh? Say it? Moses? Okay, oh, you say? Paul, so you agree with what I wrote there? I said the Paul model, yes? But several persons. Jesus too. You know? And we're going to talk about succession. Because you're not a good leader if you don't have a successor. Right? Denise? You get that one?
Yeah.
Yeah, because you see, if you have led and you have built something and when you die it goes with you, you're not a good leader. Okay? We're going to talk about that. We're going to learn some things. Then the leader as an empowerer of others. That is, you actually imparted. Jesus did that too. Of course, Barnabas did that. All right. Now, what I want to do is to talk about church leadership and the leadership context. All right. That's note 2A, 2A, that's right. This is, you're going to study this yourself, but let us look at what we're dealing with here. The leadership context. When we're talking about church leadership, you could be talking about any of three types of understanding of what we mean by church leadership in terms of its context. All right? Church leadership could be referring to leadership within the church. So this course could really be built on the notion of how can we become a good leader in the church. Would you understand it as church leadership, Kian? Yeah?
Understand?
Would you understand that as church leadership? Yeah, all of us. That's one aspect of tackling the context or the concept of church leadership. But when we talk about church leadership, we may also be talking about the leadership of the church as an institution in the community. So this course could really be dealing with church leadership in the nation. What is the role of the church in the city, in the community, within the culture? Okay? I want us to consider that. And then also, church leadership could refer really to what kind of leaders does the church produce when they're not in church. In other words, does the church really produce leaders? Church leadership. You're producing leaders, but not for the church. You're producing leaders on behalf of the church. So that when you go out there and you're working on the wharf and you're interfacing there those tough necks, you know, do you just kick them, cuss bad word? That's how people may function because they work in a rough setting. But as a church leader, or another term, as a Christian, as a church taught you how to lead in a way so that you can have influence without having to kill the people. Okay? So I want you to keep these three dimensions or these three contexts of leadership in mind and don't settle on just one. We're not here just creating pastors or creating Sunday school teachers. We're here to produce persons who can lead out there in the rough world, in the corporate world, in the educational setting. Okay? But we're not just there dealing with individuals. We have to recognize that the church, corporate, leads. If we do not put an emphasis on that, you will never achieve what the mandate has given you to do, which is what?
If the church doesn't lead.
If the church as an institution. Why? Give me a term for the church as an institution. Yeah, another word. If you don't say we are the church. Yeah, what? Believers. But believe, yeah, okay. I want a collective word. Huh? Followers, those are individuals following, many individuals following. Give me a collective term. Okay. People of God, yeah? Okay, yeah. Alright, I'm not going to tell you. We're going to study that. We might get here tonight. Let me see. Will we get here tonight? No, in fact, tomorrow. Okay. There are many terms in the New Testament to describe the church, collective terms. The most popular one.
Before you move on, well, you're saying that the church can really develop a person to show that he's a Christian out there, but don't necessarily develop a leader for the church.
Can, but they need to do both. Yeah. Let's turn the other way around. Church's responsibility is not just to produce Sunday school teachers and ushers and choristers and pastors and evangelists. They're there so that when we're finished reviewing this course, your truckers, you can convert them and they remain strong truckers because you have become a leader trained by Jesus to work out there. Part of the failure of the church is that they have not produced good politicians. So the politicians develop their own way of politicking. And we have some Christian politicians, but the church hasn't helped them to determine that a Christian politician is not just because they know Jesus Christ. It's because in their skills and their manner of leadership. Isn't it shocking that all the guys that we read about in the Bible, especially in the Old Testament, very few of them were priests and pastors. Moses was a deliverer. Joshua was a warrior. You know? I mean, Nehemiah was a cupbearer. I mean, these are nation men. By the way, some women too, like who? Esther, Deborah, Naomi. Yeah. Yeah. So this is very important. Good question you're asking. All of these we're going to be exploring tomorrow, the next day, and Saturday. Okay? But you are asking it now because, and I tackle it because we're plowing up the field. So when we go into the notes here, you'll say, oh yes, I understand that. Okay. All right. Now, I'm not going to read through this because it's very simple. All I've done is to go into the Word and to just identify types of leaders. You know, in Matthew, it talks about evangelizing and converting, and congregating and instructing and discipling. These are all things that leaders do. Okay? In the Acts and the dynamics of leadership, influence, note the following: the balance between pre-evangelism and evangelism. That is, what do you do before you evangelize? The balance between faith and repentance. The balance between converting and congregating. The balance between internal and external results. The balance between gospel preaching and social services. All of these are part of the dynamics of leadership and why we need leaders and what leaders need to be able to do. In Ephesians, the function and purpose of leadership is expressed in the unity in diversity. We have several leaders and they all have different gifts and abilities, skills, and we need them all. God is not going to cut out everybody to be the same, to be in unity. We have to learn to be united in our diversity. There's gifted leadership, there's involved laity, very strong in the New Testament. We're all priests, you know. Spiritual maturity, mutual edification. I got a lot of this from Gangel, feeding and leading. All right? Now, leadership didn't begin with the church. There was leadership before the church. Let's call it in the Old Testament times. All right? And I want you to appreciate that the principles of leadership are expressed in the Old Testament as well as in the New Testament. So those of you who come from New Testament churches that only teach the New Testament, I just want to break you into the Old Testament as well. Okay? It's very important to know that God raised up leaders in the Old Testament times. And we need to learn from them. We mustn't discard the Old Testament and say we are now into the New Testament or we're New Testament Christians. We need to understand that the Old Testament is still very relevant, especially because the New Testament talks a great deal about the building of the church, but the Old Testament talks a great deal about the building of the Yeah, both of them talk about the building of the kingdom. But the Old Testament, what's the Old Testament about? The what?
The hidden truth.
The hidden truth about?
The Messiah, about Jesus.
About God and about Jesus who is to come. Who was God dealing with in the Old Testament? The Jews. And the Jews are
Special people, it's people.
his people, and they were a nation people. Now, if you want to know how to build Jamaica, the New Testament is not going to help you a lot. It will, but only if you understand the Old Testament. So you must not throw away the Old Testament. That's why the church is of very, very little use to the country. Because it thinks that God has called them to be separate and to separate themselves from the nation. But God has called them to be a nation. Ask Peter, he says, you are a holy nation. And when he called them the ecclesia, it wasn't a religious organization. Otherwise, you could have called them the synagogue.
Isn't it the ecclesia of the church?
Is it? I'm so glad you're in this course. Yeah, of course. But what is the church? Us? And who are we? I tell you what we are not. We're not a religious organization. But the church is. That's what we have made it.
Christianity isn't a religion. that really separates and places that line. And we are being told that we are not to be submitted.
But if both parties are now in Christ and living according to Christ, you know, look at again, because in Christ that's different.
No, but even in Christ, God says that the man is the priest.
Not the priest.
The head.
Don't misquote. Yeah, the head.
The head.
Yeah. Yeah.
So even though I may be the same person in my house and my husband is unsaved, and I think I should act as the head, I really can't.
Yeah.
Because in essence, he has already been made that way from creation.
Wow. Gosh.
So even though I believe I'm a born leader and I ought to lead, I really can't lead him.
Wow.
But
you do.
And therefore, but therefore comes back to the whole context of leadership. We lead based on our context, based on our environment, based on our, so we in the home, as a woman, you have your husband. In the home, you as a woman would necessarily lead, but then you go out into your business environment. Chances are you're the leader there. So again, it comes back
Okay,
to
we're dealing with leadership, and what we are dealing with right now is the differentiation between the gender differentiation, male female in leadership. And can we leave it and hang it there?
Yeah, sure.
Don't worry when you go home if you've been leading your husband. I don't want you to be under conviction. Just come back tomorrow and we'll straighten you out. And you can bring him too, and we'll straighten that out. But I just want to bring this note to an end because this, I think, is a very, very important aspect of understanding the context, and that's really what we're dealing with here now. What is leadership really? We're talking about leadership in the church, who leads? Talking about leadership in the home, who leads? What about leadership in the country? Is Miss Portia Sims Miller out of order? Then why did we put her there? Well, it's probably not the church who put her there. Well, perhaps it was. So we need to sort some things out, and we will. We will. I'm glad you have raised that. In the Old Testament times, let's go back not to the gender differentiation now, but in Old Testament times, there were leaders who emerged. And we call them leaders in different ways. There are kings, there were prophets, and there were priests. Three major types of leaders nationally. Okay? Within the community, there were elders, there were judges, Then within the military force, you had captains and commanders and warriors and all of that. So and God worked with them. So we're not just talking church now. We are seeing that God does build leaders. And in the Old Testament, it's very plain and clear. We can't say there was no church because there was temple. So there was a spiritual context. And they had leaders in there. Priests and Levites who managed the spiritual context of leadership. And then there were prophets who operated outside of the temple, but who had a direct line to God, it seems, and spoke into the nation. Okay? And then, strange enough, there were kings who were appointed by the prophets and the priests. As it were, any king that was not under God was in trouble. So I'm just giving you that frame for you to think, because when we're talking about leadership here, we're not just talking about your church and Sunday school. We're talking about the whole context in which God works. All right? And God built a nation, and He still wants to do it today. And in this note, to read the section there in the Old Testament on page, I don't know if you have pages, but in the Old Testament, the cultural mandate is expressed by the Jewish community within a nation context. So we're talking about what's work within a nation context of Israel. And there are four significant leaders shaped Israel in four major stages in the development of the nation. Okay? Each phase required a different kind of leadership style and character. I've defined these four just for convenience in what I call the ethno-domestic phase. The major leader there was Abraham. God called Abraham, and He called him to establish his family and his home. And through his seed, the nation would be birthed. So that's ethnic. Ethno. Ethnic doesn't have anything to do with race or color. Ethnos has to do, please remember this, with seed. Ethnic, yeah, it's ethnic, but I use ethno-domestic just as an expression, meaning the home setting, the family setting. And what God was after was not a race of people. What God was after was seed, DNA. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Okay, perhaps during the week we'll ask me that question again. Why seed is so important. God is after seed. Okay? And Abraham was a kind of leader. Visionary. He's called a father of faith. Then there's another phase in the development of the nation. So every nation needs an ethno-domestic consciousness, family consciousness, a seed consciousness. Then there's a socio-judicial phase. Abraham wasn't around then. Who brought them there? Moses. Moses delivered them from out of Egypt and took them in the wilderness and spent 40 years with them, developing a socio-cultural context. And I use cultural there, but what really kept them was the judicial consciousness. In other words, they were a covenanted people by law. So they were ruled by law. God's law. And they built a community based on the law of God. There are many words that are used for law in the Old Testament. Think about them. Can you think of any? Huh? Not really.
That is used in the Bible?
Yeah, the Old Testament, some statutes, judgments, word. You know, there are at least 7, 8 of them. You see? But I'm just saying to you that that was a whole phase in the development of a nation. And a nation cannot be a nation unless they understand themselves as a socio-judicial community. Jamaica have to strengthen their law and build a contract amongst the people to be a society. And then there's another whole phase. Moses couldn't take them into the promised land. Who took them? Joshua. And what dominated the promised land when Joshua took them in? They became, it was a geo-economic phase. Geo as in land, and economic as in resources. Do you know that in the wilderness, they didn't have any money? Do you know that they didn't plant anything? Where did they got their food from? Straight. Manna. But when they went into the wilderness, manna done. Of a plant, grow stuff. What did I say? Sorry, I'm sorry. I'm glad you're listening. When we went to the promised land, they had to plant and they had to dig wells. In the wilderness, them strike the rock and get water.
It's kind of interesting that in the wilderness they get food, but in the promised land they have earth.
That's it. No, it takes a different kind of a leader. So it's a geo-economic consciousness. And then the maturing of the nation came in this civil political phase. And the supreme ultimate leader was who? David. Now here's what I just want to tell you. Every phase and every context demanded a different kind of leader. So you're only here for a time, but you must serve your time. Okay?
So can a leader cross phase and then adapt?
Yes. But he has to know and understand it. Moses had to adapt himself too. Remember, Moses was raised in the court, in the palace. He should have become the next Pharaoh. He left, fled, and he spent time in the backside of the desert until God sent him back. God taught him there, sent him to deliver the people and to go back in the wilderness and to raise up a community. And he couldn't build. If he went to build what David built, he would have done it like Pharaoh. But that's all he knew of the court. I don't know if Moses could sing. David could sing and danced. Now here is a key thing. Each of these phases was initiated by and sustained by a covenant. You know why I'm telling you these things? Because I cannot lead without these principles. You have to have a vision. You have to have a covenant. I'm sorry. I'm still in my class. Take her home. Yes. All right. Thanks. That means I should have ended. Yeah. I'm going to. But this, if you capture this, you know, Abram, God cut a covenant with Abram. What was the sign of the covenant? Huh? Circumcision. Because it is ethnic. And so he used the part of his body that has to do with the production of seed. What about Moses? How was the covenant identified? The law. And the keeping of the law. You didn't keep the law to kill you. Okay? And so he cut a covenant with Moses based on the law. Oh, Joshua, you would never figure this one out. Joshua in the promised land, what was the mark of the covenant in the promised land? Come on. Yes. Huh?
Battle?
Huh?
Something to do with battle.
I didn't hear that word.
Battle.
Battle?
Battle.
Oh, battle. Fighting. Not really. You have to fight to possess it. How do you mark the keeping of the covenant in the promised land? No. The ark was in the wilderness. Quickly, because I don't want to be here at 10 o'clock. Yes. I'll show you too. Well, I'll give you that for homework. It's in the promised land. If you read Deuteronomy chapter 6, if you read, it says, when you go into the promised land, always remember where your wealth comes from. Who give you the soil and who give you the increase. And in order to demonstrate your commitment to me, I want you to return the first fruit of the tithe to the Lord. That is the mark of the covenant. Giving unto God. And God has promised to prosper you if you don't rob Him. It's all there in it is a promised land covenant. And then finally, how did the covenant express itself in the kingdom of David? That's a good point. I'll have to say no, but you have really tickled me there. David was a worshipper, and he created, gave them the vision of the temple. But the promise that God made to him when David came to him was what? Everlasting, but you don't use the word covenant again. Why Jesus? What did Jesus inherit from David? Huh? The lineage, the seed. I knew that Audrey had the answer, man. I'm glad you're the throne. He promised him that his throne would last forever. That is what Jesus came. They thought he came to take the throne, but he don't come for that yet. He's going to come back to reign. So the throne of David and Jesus and God promised David that his throne would last forever, and as long as his seed keeps the covenant, they will be on the throne. All right. I want to just I just want you know that was Old Testament. Then there's intertestament, in between the testaments, when new types of leadership emerged, and just read this over just towards the end, and it leads us into the 4 orders of leadership in the New Testament. Read that, because when we come back tomorrow, we're going to, and then I'm not going to do the next 2b, You can read that. It's called A Profile of the Caribbean Community. I did that because we are Caribbean people. We're not just Jamaicans. And I want you to realize, you can just read that, and we'll talk a little about it. What is the environment? What does the environment look like that we live in? Because if you're going to become a leader in this environment, you have to be able to understand the environment in which you live and what we have been deprived of through our history of slavery and oppression and imperialism, and why it's very important for Jesus to return through you to liberate your people, not just in the church from sin, but in your nation from poverty, from prejudice, from injustice, and all of the above. You have to finish reading that overnight, because when we come back tomorrow, tomorrow is going to be heavy. Tonight was light. Tomorrow we're really going to study the church now, the church context. What does the church look like? Okay? Just before we end, in 1 minute, we'll dismiss in a minute. Tell me, give me one word that describes your feeling, having spent the last 2 hours in here together. Feelings, no, feelings. Huh? Feeling enthusiastic, good word. Yes? Don't tell me her word. What else? Enlightened, yeah? What else? Iceland. Any word?
Exciting.
Feelings, huh?
Exciting.
Exciting? Excitement?
Excited, yeah.
Okay, excited. Okay.
Encouraged.
Encouraged. All right. Kabla? Hopeful. Yeah. Well, all we need now is the last word from Everton. What is your word for tonight? Enthused. We got that. But you're confirming it. All right. I'm excited, and I have looked on you all and watched you as we have been through, and I'm hopeful that somebody will call Michelle and tell her she can't afford to miss the one night.
5:30, sir. Everybody agreed on that?
She's in there. Oh. Restructure next week. It will be a week that I will work with you. I may even do an online thing talking to you, or I will write to you. We will be in touch. I will be in Trinidad teaching another course. But we will connect. All right? I won't leave you
Sir, the time
without
to
work.
put to
Yeah.
connect with us 6 to 8.
That's not going to be possible.
No, because some come on after 7.
No, it's okay. work with you, perhaps with your developmental readings. We'll see. Yeah, it's a very exciting time, and I'm very happy to meet you all. Tomorrow, I'll bring my camera to take your photographs. Yeah, you can go to the hairdresser. But you look fine. You look like a, huh?
These are temporary.
Yeah, but you're a trucker.
Friday.
So would you prefer me to wait until Friday? No, but Everett won't be on Sunday. But I do take photograph of my students because after I leave you, I don't remember you, and I have to go back and say, oh my goodness, that's Denise. Yeah.
I remember you, sir.
You remember me?
I was about 17.
Oh, glad it is just
Yeah,
said.
about the Lord.
I spoke to you?
When I was in Moorlands, Moorlands, your wife was pregnant.
Oh my gosh, yes, I
So
remember
many,
that.
many years ago.
Yes, this was 1968.
Don't we know her age?
Yes. Yeah, her children are 20-something. And you were 17 then?
It was about, no, like about, good. I was in high school. I was in high school that time.
Okay.
13.
Well, I'm glad you're. Yes.
Very interesting.
Okay.
So thank you. It was good.
Yeah. Now, it may be that it may be when I go through this, can you download your stuff? Because some of the sessions that we do will have diagrams, and I noticed that when I print it out like this, they don't come out clear. I don't know what they look like in there. And it may be when I go through it overnight in preparation for tomorrow, I may send it to you in your email.
Is it possible for me to help them put that book? Just wondering. That book.
It is. If I could do it, you could do it.
No, if I could get your book. Get a copy of that book.
Do you know how I got this? I took it off my thing here, and I brought it to the and I asked them to do it. I can do it. I can do it for you if they'll tell you how much it will cost.
No problem.
Yeah.
Yes,
You like that?
yes, I was going to ask.
Huh?
That is on this?
Yeah, this is.
All of that is on there. But sometimes
I manage the computer.
Yeah, we'll see.
I know. Okay.
So